Thank you so much for being here. I want to start with this big picture question. Is the United States now at war with Venezuela?
There's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations. It's not a war against Venezuela. We are enforcing American laws with regards to oil sanctions. We have sanctioned entities. We go to court. We get a warrant. We seize those boats with oil, and that will continue. We would continue to reserve the right to take strikes against drug boats that are bringing drugs towards the United States that are being operated by transnational criminal organizations, including the Cartel de los Sols. Of course, the leader of that cartel, is now in U.S. custody and facing U.S. justice in the Southern District of New York, and that's Nicolas Maduro. So we made a big progress in that regard.
Mr. Secretary, who is in charge? Are you running Venezuela right now?
Yeah, I mean, I keep people, fixating on that. Here's the bottom line on it is we expect to see changes in Venezuela. Changes of all kinds, long-term, short-term. We'd love to see all kinds of changes, but the most immediate changes are the ones that are in the national interest of the United States. That's why we're involved here, because of how it applies and has a direct impact on the United States. Okay, we are not going to be able to allow in our hemisphere a country that becomes a crossroads for the activities of all of our adversaries around the world.
Welcome to the Conservative Lion. If you are new, thank you for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to be doing a quick reaction to Secretary of State Marco Rubio having a discussion with this woman from NBC's Meet the Press show that has made the rounds on social media, especially here on YouTube. Now, if you listen to Marco Rubio in that opening clip before I stop the video, Marco Rubio has still, stuck to the narrative about the drug traffickers, but he starts to slowly deviate away from that and starts talking about how we're going to, not allow Venezuela to be at the crossroads and have activity going on with our adversaries. And if you saw the thumbnail, you see that I said that it's never been about the drug trafficking. And I'll explain why in a minute, why it's not about drug trafficking. Because if you know anything about the narco trade from south of the border, you know that the overwhelming majority of illicit drugs that enter into America are trafficked by the Mexican cartels, not Venezuela. Venezuela has never played a major role in narcotics being trafficked into the United States. I'm not saying that there have not been any drugs that have passed through Venezuela and that Venezuela does not play a very, very, very infinitesimal, aka a very, very small role. But to go extract Nicolas Maduro and do all the stuff that's going on, blowing up all these drug boats, not buying it. A lot of us ain't buying it because we know the truth.
We just can't allow it. We can't have a country where the people in charge of its military and in charge of its police department are openly cooperating with drug trafficking organizations. We're not going to allow that. These things are direct threats to the United States, and we intend to use every element of leverage that we have to ensure that that changes. The one I would point everyone to is that our military is helping the Coast Guard conduct a law enforcement function, which is not just the capture of Maduro, but the enforcement of our sanctions. We go to court, we get a warrant, we seize the boats. And we think this is tremendous leverage, incredible, crippling leverage, which we intend to continue to use until we see the changes that we need to see that are benefit to the American people. And by the way, we believe to the people of Venezuela as well.
But Mr. Secretary, I think there's a lot of questions about who the point people are during this transition. President Trump said we're going to run the country. So is it you? Is it Secretary Hegseth? Who are those people who will be running the country specifically?
So you notice that Rubio will slip in the drug trafficking, accusations and use that justification for doing what we're doing in Venezuela, but he'll also let more of the real reasons drip out of his mouth slowly and gradually. You have to go back to the Hugo Chavez administration. For those of y'all that remember, Hugo Chavez was the openly socialist leader prior to Nicolas Maduro assuming power. Chavez died, I believe, around 2014, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, 2013, 2014. And he wasn't even 60 years old. I forgot how he died, but he was a thorn in the side of the United States of America. He wasn't very cooperative with us. He didn't really care for America. And this is par for the course when it comes to countries that have an abundance of natural resources and they actually are cozying up to countries that we're at odds with. We have a very, very, I would say, interesting relationship with the Chinese. It's a relationship where we don't really like them and they don't really like us, but we kind of need each other because America buys a lot of cheap crap from them, and China loves the American dollar, right? They love our money because we spend a lot of money with them. China's economy would not be what it is without America, and Donald Trump has had a more aggressive approach when it comes to dealing with China. So now that we've decided to move into Venezuela up under the Trump administration, we've seen oil tankers get seized that were bound for China. And then, of course, China has been meddling in Venezuela. We don't want China in the backyard of America. We call the Western Hemisphere our backyard. North and South America are to be dominated by U.S. interests. Our military, our foreign policy, all that is supposed to be above all in this part of the globe, going all the way back to what's called the Monroe Doctrine, which was actually implemented because of Europeans, because way back in the day, China wasn't even a factor. This was back in the 1800s when the Monroe Doctrine came about, I think in the 1820s, long before the Civil War even jumped off.
Well, it's not running, it's running policy. The policy with regards to this, we want Venezuela to move in a certain direction because not only do we think it's good for the people of Venezuela, it's in our national interest. It either touches on something that's a threat to our national security or touches on something that's either beneficial or harmful.
And are you involved in that transition,
so obviously
Secretary?
I'm very involved in this. Well, of course. I mean, I think everyone knows I'm pretty involved on politics in this hemisphere. Obviously, as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, very involved in all these elements. The Department of War plays a very important role here, along with the Department of Justice, for example, because they're the ones that have to go to court. So this is a team effort by the entire national security apparatus of our country, but it is running this policy. And the goal of the policy is to see changes in Venezuela that are beneficial to the United States, first and foremost, because that's who we work for, but also, we believe, beneficial for the people of Venezuela, who have suffered tremendously. We want a better future for Venezuela, and we think a better future for the people of Venezuela also is stabilizing for the region and makes the neighborhood we live in a much better and safer place.
I wish that Marco Rubio had that same type of energy for the United States of America, for the citizens who are struggling in our crazy economy and all the stuff that's going on in the United States of America, all the domestic issues that we have. And we know that the administration, just like previous administrations, say this because it sounds good. The majority of Venezuelans are not going to benefit, in totality from Nicolas Maduro being captured by the United States.
President Trump said the administration is working with Maduro's Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez. Why does the administration oppose working with the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado? She's the Nobel Peace Prize winner, of course, as well. Her coalition has the support of 70% of Venezuelans. Why not work with her?
Well, a couple things. First of all, Maria Corina Machado is fantastic, and she's someone I've known for a very long time, and that whole movement is. But we are dealing with the immediate reality. The immediate reality is that, unfortunately, and sadly, but unfortunately, the vast majority of the opposition is no longer present inside of Venezuela. We have short-term things that have to be addressed right away. We all wish to see a bright future for Venezuela, a transition to democracy. All of these things are great, and we all want to see that. I've worked on that for 15 years on a personal level, both in the Senate and now as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. These are things I still care about, we still care about. But what we're talking about is what happens over the next 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, and how that ties to the national interest of the United States. And so we expect to see more compliance and cooperation than we were previously receiving. With Nicolas Maduro, you could not make a deal or an arrangement. Although he, by the way, was given very generous offers. He could have left Venezuela as recently as, a week and a half ago. There were opportunities available for him to avoid all of this because he's not someone we can work with. He suckered the Biden administration into stupid deals. He's made a career out of not keeping deals and figuring out how to save himself by buying time. And President Trump was not going to fall into that trap. So now there are other people in charge of the military and police apparatus there. They're going to have to decide now what direction they want to go. And we hope they will choose a different direction than the one Nicolas Maduro picked. Ultimately, we hope this leads to a holistic transition all the way around in Venezuela, societal, political, all of that. We're in favor of all of that. But right now, we have to take the first steps. And the first steps are securing what's in the national interest of the United States and also beneficial to the people of Venezuela. And those are the things that we're focused on right now. No more drug trafficking, no more Iran Hezbollah presence there, and no more using the oil industry to enrich all our adversaries around the world and not benefiting the people of Venezuela or, frankly, benefiting the United States and the region.
Stopping drug trafficking, getting rid of Hamas and Hezbollah in Venezuela. Haven't heard that one before. I don't know how in the world Hezbollah and Hamas are in Venezuela. That's a long way from their base of operations in Gaza, and I think Hezbollah operates out of Lebanon, which are both God knows how many thousands of miles away from Venezuela. It's a lot of ocean across, and most of your Hamas members don't have that type of resources to travel to Venezuela. What are they doing in Venezuela? And then, of course, stopping them from selling oil to our adversaries. He's telling you exactly what we're doing down there.
You talk about a holistic transition. I think there's a lot of focus on potential elections. How soon will elections be held? Within 30 days, Mr. Secretary?
Elections? Well, look, this is a country that's been governed by this regime now for 14 or 15 years. The elections should have happened a long time ago. The elections did happen. They lost them, and they didn't count the votes, or they refused to count the votes, and everyone knows it. So all of that, I think, is premature at this point. There's a lot of work to be done here. Right now, what we are focused in, let's be realistic here, what we are focused on right now is all of the problems we had with when Maduro was there. We still have those problems in terms of them needing to be addressed. We are going to give people an opportunity to address those challenges and those problems. Until they address it, they will continue to face this oil quarantine. They will continue to face pressure from the United States. We will continue to target drug boats if they try to run towards the United States. We will continue to seize the boats that are sanctioned with court orders. We will continue to do that and potentially other things until the things we need to see addressed are addressed. Because ultimately, above everything else, we care about elections, we care about democracy, we care about all of that. But the number one thing we care about is the safety, security, well-being, and prosperity of the United States. And that's what we're going to focus on first and foremost here. And that's what these policies, these changes we need to see made are about.
Okay, significant there. You say you will continue to seize boats when necessary. I want to ask you about boots on the ground. A lot of attention on that. The president was asked about the possibility of U.S. boots on the ground. He said, quote, "We're not afraid of it." How many U.S. forces are on the ground right now in Venezuela? Are there any?
We don't have U.S. forces on the ground in Venezuela. No, we don't have U.S. forces on the ground. Everyone knows. They were on the ground for about 2 hours when they went to capture Maduro. And I think what the president is saying is very simple, and that is, as president of the United States, he is not going to go around telling people what he's not going to do. He's not going to go around saying, I won't do this, I won't do that. Yes, I care about this issue, but I'll only go so far. He retains all this optionality. In the particular case you're citing, this was, in essence, at its core, a law enforcement function. Okay, the Department of Justice, dating back in the Biden administration, that had a $25 million reward for his capture. So we have a reward for his capture, but we're not going to enforce it. That's the difference between President Trump and everybody else. It's easy to make a wanted poster and say $50 million for the capture of Maduro, but no one takes that seriously because you're not going to do anything about it. President Trump did something about it.
Let me ask you.
He did something about it. We went in, we grabbed him, he was arrested, and he's now in New York. No Americans were killed, no equipment was lost. It had to be done, and it's been done. And I assure you, the people left behind in Venezuela now that are in charge of the police and everything else, I assure you, they're going to probably be a lot more compliant than Maduro was as a result of this.
Well, President Trump told the New York Post there won't be troops in Venezuela as long as Delcy Rodriguez, quote, does what we want. She's already, though, demanding the release of Nicolas Maduro. As you know, she's insisting that her country never become a colony. What exactly does Rodriguez need to do to keep U.S. troops out of Venezuela?
Well, forget about the U.S. troops portion of it. What needs to happen for any of this to change, for our relations with Venezuela to change and our whole approach to it to change, the things we have talked about are the ones I've highlighted already. You can't flood this country with gang members. You can't flood this country with drugs that are coming out of Colombia through Venezuela with the cooperation of elements of your security forces. You can't turn Venezuela into the operating hub for Iran, for Russia, for Hezbollah, for China, for the Cuban intelligence agents that control that country. That cannot continue. Those things cannot continue to be in place. You cannot continue to have the largest oil reserves, in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States, not benefiting the people of Venezuela and stolen by a handful of oligarchs around the world, including inside of Venezuela, but not benefiting the people of that country. We've seen how our adversaries all over the world are exploiting and extracting resources from Africa, from every other country. They're not going to do it in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah. They are not. That is not going to happen under President Trump. Read our national security strategy. He is serious about it, and he's going to do something about it, and we're doing something about it.
Let me ask you about oil. The president says the U.S. is taking over the oil. The question is, I guess, if the purpose of the operation was to capture Maduro and bring him to justice, why does the United States need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry?
And I'm going to stop the video right there. I will post a link to the actual full video in the description box. You're more than welcome to go watch the whole entire clip. I think it's like 18 minutes long and some change. I just had to react to this because everybody keeps on talking about it's about oil. Well, to be honest with you, if you know anything about the oil industry, Venezuela is it is the biggest oil deposit in the world, right? Venezuela has more proven oil reserves than any other country on planet Earth. Excuse me. However, that oil that they have down there and what's called the Orinoco Belt, it's a region in the northeastern part of the country, and it's a pretty big deposit of oil, but it's a very, very, very thick, gunky, very viscous oil. It's very heavy oil, and it's very difficult to refine. In the United States of America, we have plenty of oil that we get from Canada. We get oil from the Middle East. We get our own oil. It's oil for days across the country and across the world. So this is deeper than Venezuelan oil. But of course, they're going to seize the oil tankers. Of course, they want to take over the oil industry because this helps slow down China. And the United States of America has been at odds with China, from a geopolitical perspective for quite some time. And when the Trump administration came to power, there were people in the background doing the Birdman hand rub like, yeah, this is what we're going to do when Trump takes power. All of a sudden, we start targeting Venezuelan drug boats. That was our way in. That was what you needed to say to get the American people that were gullible enough to fall for it. And you heard Rubio continue to talk about the drugs. But he also spent just as much time, if not more time, talking about our adversaries, talking about we got to help the Venezuelan people. We got to bring Nicolas Maduro to justice. Do you know how many dictators out there that are worse than Nicolas Maduro? You can go to Africa. You can go to Haiti. You can go to freaking South Asia. It's dictators all across the world. Look, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, but we ain't finna go play with North Korea because they got nukes. So that's all I have to say. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Hopefully, more and more people will begin to wake up and realize that this is another false pretense. We were led into Venezuela to go get Maduro. And hopefully this won't be a quagmire. Hopefully it won't escalate. Hopefully this won't be another long-term conflict, because the American people, especially us, I'm a millennial, I'm an 80s baby. Those of us born in the 80s, even some of your younger Gen Xers, and especially Gen Z, none of us have the appetite for another military conflict. None of us trying to go to war, especially if we don't have no business going to war. This is not justified. We don't have no business in Venezuela, right? But this is the American way. Hostile leader to American interests, resources. They partnered up with our adversaries like China and Iran and Russia. Phew, here we go. That's why we at odds with Iran. All right. And plus Israel wants us at odds with Iran. But that's another conversation for another video. Appreciate y'all watching. I'll catch up. Peace.